to Financially Fluent with Ray Godleski of Southeast Wealth Partners. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate your financial journey with greater ease and efficiency.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Financially Fluent. I am your host, Ray Godleski, and I am very pleased to have a guest on our show today, Rachel Joy Baribeau. She is the founder of I'm Changing the Narrative. Want to just, we're going to release this in December. The holidays are coming up, and whether you feel like you have a lot or not, it really magnifies the joy that people experience, magnifies the pain, unfortunately, for some other folks. So there's people with resources to help others. There's folks that don't. But either way, we just want to have a conversation today. And I know Rachel is going to be a great guest to have on our show for today. She is out there on the front lines. And so let's go ahead and introduce Rachel. Tell us a little bit about you, kind of your mission behind I'm Changing the Narrative in your personal story.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a sportscaster for 17 years, and it was a beautiful career. Never imagined that I would step away from it, and busted a lot of barriers for young women and older women. Became the first female host on Sirius XM on their collegiate channels. One of 870 people in the world to vote for the Heisman, and one of very few women to do that. And then got to host the first 5 years of the college football playoff national championship game. So really just got to usher in history and, make a way for a lot of women in the industry, and had a beautiful career. Back in 2016, I saw a problem in college athletics, and guys were getting in trouble left and right. There was just a lot of negativity in a sport that I'd given my life to cover. Really, like, I dedicated my life, I should say, to cover. And so funny enough, I say I created a curriculum. Ray, it was not a curriculum. It was like a 2-page Google Doc. So I always tell people, don't curse the days of small beginnings. As a matter of fact, I was just telling people, I made a post this morning hosting a retreat and a gala in February, and I'll tell you more about that later. But I said, there's a part of putting on things, of you have a podcast, of putting yourself out there, of hosting an event, of starting a side hustle, of starting a business, whatever it is, the going for it is scary. The putting yourself out there is scary. And a lot of people are paralyzed by fear, so they never go for it, whatever it is. And so, so I created this curriculum, funny enough. And my friend and my mentor, Dr. Kevin Elko, who was Nick Saban's right-hand man for 27 years, his mental man, he stuck his neck out for me. He called Jimbo Fisher. I thought I would take it into high schools. I never put two and two together to put it with college athletes, even though it was covering them. It was just so obvious. It was right in front of my face. And he stuck his neck out for me. He had never heard me speak before, but he said, Jimbo, you need to have her in. And so I went to FSU football in September of 2016. So next year, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. And in that time, I have worked with over 100 colleges, many of them multiple times. I was invited this past February as one of 2 speakers in the world to speak to all 32 NFL player engagement. As I work with individual teams, I work with the LAPD, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Customs and Border Patrol, maximum security prisons, high schools, corporations, you name it, I go. And what started as purpose, passion, platform, in my own experience with domestic violence, has now turned into mental health, joy, finding what sets your soul on fire, and interpersonal relationships. And it's just blown up, so much so that in 2019, I wrote a retirement letter, Ray, and I walked away from sportscasting while I was employed by Sirius XM.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I know you've got experience with athletes, and clearly today, while that's a lot of experience that you have, we also both you and I have experience with just other folks that are dealing with mental health issues. Again, I think it gets kind of exaggerated during the holidays. What are some of the patterns that you would see this time of year that for our listeners they would want to be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think isolation is a big one. If you're just looking at the circadian rhythm and the seasons of life, we are supposed to hibernate. We're supposed to kind of, just by nature, go indoors and stay indoors and, nest, some people would call it. And the colder weather, warrants that in many places. And so I think solitude is a beautiful thing, but I wrote about it in my first book, which is called Relentless Joy, and it became a bestseller back in 2020. And I said, there's a fine line between isolation and solitude and isolation. And you have to be very, 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 very careful on that. As somebody who enjoys solitude, I have to make sure that I am not isolating myself, because I had, and this is a trigger warning for anybody listening, but I had a dark night of the soul back in 2019, where I almost took my own life. And, when you isolate, you begin to hear, voices, and it can happen. And we're not around family and friends. And I think the pandemic really taught us this, reminded us this: we need each other. We need community. We need hugs. We need eyeball to eyeball. We need to learn from each other. We need the energy that we gain from each other. And so I would just ask your listeners and viewers to be very, very careful that solitude does not turn into isolation during this holiday season.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky, right? Because
Yeah.
we always think of Thanksgiving or the Christmas and Hanukkah holidays as time with family, which of course it is traditionally, but for some people, that's not healthy, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, you nailed it. For some people, you got to think about it this way. I was just with the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday, and obviously this will come out in the beginning of December. And I asked them, I said, who in here saw good love growing up? And some of them raised their hand. And I said, look, it's your responsibility to go show others what good, healthy love looks like: hugging, forgiving, kissing, being in love, staying faithful. But and I said, who in here hasn't, and all these other hands raised up. And I said, it's your responsibility to break generational patterns. Why am I saying that, Ray? I'm saying that because for the holidays, many people like myself, I've lost both my mom and my dad, can be intense times of grief. But for others, they are going home or contemplating going home to situations that are toxic, that are not good, where Aunt Bertha is asking you, why are you not married or haven't had kids, or why you gained 10 pounds, or do you want to have more turkey? Like,
Uh-huh.
so we develop it. I'm changing the narrative. We've done this in many years past, and happy to share it with your people. But we develop strategies, things you can say back, ways you can navigate the conversation to other ways, and it's just really we create battle plans for people and in all sorts of situations. So really, I think the biggest thing for that, I'm a big takeaway speaker wherever I'm at, on a podcast, speaking, writing. I think it's for you to know, hey, this is a boundary. So if you're going into a toxic situation that could be toxic, or have a toxic family member, and I'm not a big person on cutting people off. I think things can be redeemed. But in certain situations, I understand that maybe you have to protect your peace, and you have to. But in those situations, Ray, I would just say something like, if you're going ahead and get ready for Aunt Bertha to ask that, you can go ahead and have your answer prepared. Aunt Bertha, thank you so much for asking about whether I want more turkey. I'm doing great. I'm really healthy. And Aunt Bertha, you know what? I'm not married yet, but I'm doing really good. Me and my 5 cats and 10 dogs, we're doing great. So you just go ahead and envision those things you're going to say back to Aunt Bertha, and it makes it easier when it actually happens.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Sometimes people on the outside, right? They are married or they financially look good, but they may actually not be. And so for a lot of folks that we work with, it's about being charitably inclined, and that's great. But outside of the financial things, what would be just certain signs, right, that somebody would see and notice? I know you mentioned isolation, get that, but what would just be some other signs people should be looking out for? Maybe just some other positive things that we could do just to be reaching out more,
Yes.
um, to help those that may be in need, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. I teach this everywhere I go, but we all know the kind of person that only calls you when they need something.
Yeah.
And, when I used to be a sportscaster, I remember there was a gal that reached out to me, and she said, oh my God, I'm from Alabama, and born in Georgia, but raised in Alabama. And she said, girl, you look so good on TV. How you doing? And she said, can you get me some tickets? I not heard from her in years. Right.
Uh,
And so I teach people, how do we not be that person? So the way that we make sure we're not that person is we reach out to people for no reason whatsoever. So
yeah.
Ray, if you cross my mind, I might reach out and say, praying for you, brother. Hope you're doing well today. And many people report that that text, that little thing that somebody said or did, like, what could be a lifeline that day. Because the reality is that we don't know what people are going through. And the reality is that you might have stood next to somebody today who's hanging by a thread. My friend over at Same Here Global, he says this 1 in 5 business that, 1 in 5 people will suffer from a mental health issue situation in their life. That's crap. 5 in 5 will, because
Mm,
somebody will go bankrupt. They will lose a parent. They will go through a divorce. They will lose a child. They will get sick. Something will happen, and it might not be clinical. It might not be diagnosable, but we're all living life, right? And lives, And
yeah.
so I would say that a great thing to do would just be to check on people. So make this a mental note. When somebody crosses your mind, just send them a text. Just check on them.
No, I love that. Yeah, it's so funny. It's not funny really, but I was just on another podcast as a guest, and it's kind of said the same thing, which is you're either right in the middle of a mess right now,
Yeah.
or you just got out of a mess, or you're going to get into one, and you kind of just have to mentally prepare yourself. When things are going well, that this will, eventually not last, and just have to be okay with being able to get, not that you want to expect it in a pessimistic way, but just in a realistic way that things aren't always great forever. And eventually, you have some setbacks and we just have to get back up. And hopefully you have people that you can reach out to help you do it. One of the things I would say too, you mentioned reaching out when they're on your mind. Love that. And I think with technology, there's a lot of bad things about technology, but there's also we can use it for the good, right? So
Amen.
whether that's sending a Facebook message or I know some people don't listen to voicemail, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Well, I found that out. I'm like in my mid 30s. I left a message for somebody, and I was kind of mad that they didn't return my call. And then, of course, now they're like they were younger than me, so they're like, "Oh, I don't listen to voicemail." I was like,
Yeah. Some
"Yeah,
people just, they're like, phone call? No, no, no.
yeah, yeah, yeah." So maybe a little recording, right? You could
Yeah.
record your voice and
Yes.
send that text. That might
Yes.
work. Yeah, yeah. So, love that you mentioned that. So, I think we kind of, you know, phew, we think about warning signs. I know we're kind of touching around it, but I think it's okay to be direct here. What would be a actual sign that we would see a verbal or a nonverbal cue? We might actually see that it's kind of a clear thing that we would notice, and then what might be a good action to take from that?
Yeah. I think somebody who's either just sullen, dull, disinterested, or doing things differently than they normally do. So if they seem honestly very recently unkempt, not taking care of themselves, personal grooming, they're not showing up. They may be experiencing a mental health crisis. I used to, and I don't smile because of what happened. I smile because of the outcome. I used to get somewhat personally irritated when players would sleep through my talks. And some would just, come right in and they'd sleep, and some would try to fight it and they'd sleep. And then it really hit me one day in prayer time. God was like, Rachel, you don't know what they're going through at night. You don't know if they're homesick. You don't know if they have anxiety. I've battled clinical depression before and battled anxiety. And he said, you just don't know. And so now if I see a player sleeping in one of my talks, or even an adult, because I speak at all sorts of places, healthcare conferences and all over the country, I don't get mad at him anymore, because I really don't know what happened to you the night before. You could be battling anything, right? And so yeah. So I think, for me, just sharing with your people, just to recap on it, just changes, things that are changes in people that you notice. And what do? We connect. We reach out. I heard this story a couple of months ago. I think I read it somewhere. We talked about a coworker. She had lost a parent or something of that nature, and she had moved around the same time, and she was so depressed that she could not find the will in her to like unpack. It just seemed like a Herculean task. And the coworker, a coworker of this person, just kept asking her how she was, and she said, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." But the reality was she was living amongst boxes. She was coming home and just living amongst boxes, because depression and anxiety can paralyze you. I know that. And so the coworker of this person took it upon themselves and just wouldn't take no for an answer, and showed up one night with a box of pizza, a couple of boxes of pizza, and a couple of friends. And they unpacked this woman's apartment in one night. They got her out of the boxes and into, they helped her past her grief, right? They picked her up. Desmond Tutu says at some point in time, and I'm going to butcher it, we've got to stop saying, oh, people are falling in the river. We've got to go upstream and figure out why they're falling in the first place. And so
Mm,
what that coworker did was go upstream and say, this person's not right. They may say I'm okay. They may be nodding, but they don't look all right. They don't seem all right. They're disinterested. And instead of taking no for an answer, I'm just going to show up. The worst thing the person can do to you is slap you and tell you to go away, but I'd rather die trying and to help somebody. And specifically with men, but all ages and both genders. We are seeing a mental health absolute crisis in the United States right now. The numbers for men are atrocious. And I really think we've just got to start crossing the aisle and start getting, this idea, Ray, I say this to him in my talks. Oh, reach out for help, reach out for help. Bull crap. When I was clinically depressed, I didn't have the strength in me to reach out for help. I needed people to reach in and say, Rachel, I will not leave you where you are. I love you. I'm going to check on you. And after I had my dark night of the soul, there were people in my life that literally checked on me daily, and would have either driven to Nashville to find me or send, the dogs out for me, had they not been able to get in touch with me. And I'm eternally grateful for them.
And now a quick message from today's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Southeast Wealth Partners. If you've been listening to Financially Fluent, you know we're all about making smart money moves, whether it's planning for retirement, protecting your family, or building long-term wealth. But everyone's situation is different, and that's where the team at Southeast Wealth Partners comes in. They take the time to understand your goals, your challenges, and your values. To learn more and connect with their team, visit southeastwealthpartners.com. Southeast Wealth Partners, your next step toward being financially fluent.
So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I wonder, for people that are, maybe they are kind of at the bottom, like what are just some, and even if somebody's having to drag them there, right, to something, what are some of the local, whether it's a nonprofit or whatever, just local places that people can go to that might be of some help, the ones that are really struggling at the bottom? Have you found certain organizations that you think do a great job in this space?
Yeah, I think NAMI is great. NAMI has chapters all over the country. Your church, even if it's not your church, calling churches and asking if they have resources. A lot of churches will help provide mental health resources. We have a psychologist that works with, I'm changing the narrative, that will say, Google free mental health resources and then put your town and things will pop up there. I also think I went a couple of weeks ago, I took my dog and we went. One of our favorite things to do is to go to the farmer's market. He's a little old dog, like a Pomeranian mix. So I put him in a stroller and off we go. And we can't get 2 feet, Ray, without people stopping and oohing and awing over this dog. And I love it. And so it starts conversations and people say hi to me and I say hi to them and I give them a compliment and they say, and by the time I got back to my car, I made a video and put it on my Instagram and I said, if you are depressed, get out, like go get a dog, go borrow a dog. There's programs, or a cat from the Humane Society, and go take it for a walk.
Right.
Just being around people, the amount of dopamine that I felt and the amount of goodness and joy and good energy by just being out, breathing fresh air,
Yep.
sunshine, vitamin D, because there's a
Right.
certain kind of vitamin D you can really only get from the sun, not a bottle, and being around other people, genuinely joyful and happy people, and then an animal is just so great. So I would say all of those things: NAMI, churches, Google free mental health resources in your area, go borrow a dog, go adopt a dog or a cat. And then if you're not even there, if you're to the point where you haven't, showered, and I've been there before too, I don't care if you have to crawl or walk, but sometimes taking a shower is
Mm.
a win that day. Like just washing your hair. And if you haven't been there, I pray you never, go through it. But if you've been clinically depressed before, literally sometimes brushing your teeth or changing your underwear, and I know this sounds crazy,
Mm-hmm.
or taking a shower is a victory for that day.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Have seen some churches that do a good job with that. They'll just go out there with kind of those mobile vans and be able to, yeah, we think we take for granted today, right? Which is
Yeah.
just, yeah, getting clean, right?
Yeah.
And usually it's like the inside out, right? But there's times when getting kind of that outside cleansing can start to the process of building inside. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's a good point. Glad you, pointed that out. And so I think, for listeners that have the financial means,
Mhm.
you know, there's so many good organizations. I do think it's a good idea to probably do some due diligence as to, what dollars are going there and how are they using it, right? So
Yeah.
there's several resources out there for folks to look into, or, if 50 cents of my dollar going to the purpose, or is it close, or is it a much higher percentage than that, so, in addition to that, there's plenty of other ways to do, maybe you don't have any financial means, or, you're not looking for a tax write-off or whatever, right? There's other ways you can get involved. Um, so
Yeah,
I
can I
think,
say can I
yeah,
say this about that before you move on? I think you're absolutely right, just doing your due diligence. I saw something the other day, I don't remember what it was, but it was talking about, the amount of money that went to, like, a salary and the actual amount that went to the movement, and it was like, "Whoa." So I think that's really, really important. Something too for your faith-based people. I'm a tither, and I will tithe to my church, and that's it's a personal decision for people that are believers, but
Mhm.
I will keep back some of that, quote, what I was going to give, because I the other day came across a guy behind the grocery store here, and I gave him a little bit of money, and then God told me to turn back around and talk to him, and he was raising money because his dog that he had there needed surgery. And
Mm,
so I said, "Give me the vet's name," and I called the vet and I put some money towards towards the dog's surgery. And so the guy ends up, got my number from the vet. And I'm not saying this to brag on me, to brag for me, as a
right.
believer. But my point is keep, however you do it. I personally keep a little money back, that I plan to give for. Personally have 3 friends right now that are just going through it, right? Like a single mom who's trying to start over. A friend of mine who's a musician that's like just keeps getting hit one thing after another. And so, a lot of friends are going through it. So, yes, give. Please give to your church, to nonprofits, but also keep in mind that you are the gift. You are a giver too. And I teach people this in my movement. Keep your head on the swivel. Oftentimes we go to the airport, Ray, we go to the gas station, and we just got our blinders on. Got to get
Mm,
my Coca-Cola, got to fill my gas up,
right.
like, and you may not ever notice the person outside that's struggling, or you may not notice the cashier that needs a smile, or you're beautiful, or somebody who financially might need you. And a shameless plug, I'm changing the narrative is a nonprofit. It's a 501(c)(3), and everything that passes through to us. I have an LLC as well, but the nonprofit, everything that passes through to us, we use it for mental health resources, mental health training. We go into prisons with that, to men's maximum security prisons. We've gotten people therapy when they could not otherwise afford it and paid for it. And so everything that goes in there, literally everything, because we support that nonprofit, goes into that. So if you are passionate about that, I'm changing the narrative.org is a great place to get more information.
No, yeah, no, appreciate that. One of the things you kind of touched on is what I would call margin, which for a lot of us, we feel like we don't have hardly any margin, at
Hmm.
least time wise. Like most people probably feel that way. Not a whole lot of margin with their time. So, like you said, they're going from the gas station to boom, 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 like that. And then some people don't have a whole lot of financial margin. And as you mentioned, it's probably important to have some financial margin so that when opportunities do come up, when somebody is in need, I mean, how great a feeling, right? Obviously, the piece that's important is that we're helping the other person. But
Amen.
truth be told, the feeling is coming back to you, or should,
Yes.
right? That, hey, we just helped someone. We had some margin. We were able to financially help someone in that situation. But getting back to kind of time management, what nobody wants to talk about, it's funny. We talk about what are our values. And in the old days, you got a checkbook, right? So people would say, look at my calendar and look at my checkbook. What did I do the last, 30 to 90 days. That's truly, if you were to look at yourself in the mirror, that's what we value, right? And I do that sometimes, and I'm like, ooh, I could do better, right? And so I just think, and sometimes what happens is we say yes to so many things, and
Hmm.
sometimes we try to proactively think, okay, hold on, what do I really want to do from a purpose standpoint? How can I be more purposeful with my time? And then, of course, the rub there is I don't have the time. And so then we got to like look at ourselves and go, is there something I could do less of
Yes.
or maybe
You
cut out
nailed it.
completely.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So that
There,
we
there's
can
hidden
get that.
there's hidden time somewhere. I teach people this. People tell me I don't have time. I said, baby, you watch Netflix? Do you watch Hulu? How many hours do you spend watching shows? Or there's something in there in your time, unless you are a single mom or a single dad, or somebody who's married that's working 3 jobs. You more than likely there is time somewhere where you can shave it off. And I even tell people in those situations, you can get up 15 minutes earlier and study something on YouTube. We are in
Mhm.
a time and a place and a space where knowledge is literally free on the internet. You can find somebody teaching on the internet. If you know, I have a bonus son. I'm married to a man with 4 children, and they are lovely, and they're the biggest blessings. My son can fix anything, and he taught himself from YouTube videos. Like there's literally not a thing that the boy can. He's a man now, can fix from YouTube.
Wow.
So I just wanted to back you up. You're absolutely right about the time thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. We're getting towards the end of our discussion today, and you may have heard, but in case you didn't, a lot of people get to do a trivia question on our show here. So I thought we'd make it sports related. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. If you don't get it, you won't be on our all-star team, but no pressure. And then so the audience knows you are an Auburn person, right?
Mhm.
I heard Saban earlier, but I was like, well, that's an Alabama thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, so here we go. We're going to go with the trivia question. Which quarterback played in 4 straight Super Bowls in the NFL
Oh,
in the early 90s?
in the early '90s. I was gonna say Ben Leary, but then he didn't go to the NFL. I don't know. I
All
don't
right, we'll
know.
get one more hit. They is a quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. They lost 4 straight Super Bowls. Yeah. All right.
You
Nope.
should have told me you were gonna give me.
Yeah, I had that sneaky.
I promise I was a good sportscaster. You just caught me on a day
No, that's
where
I had to go NFL. If I'd have done anything SEC, you would have nailed it.
I know.
Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, you know all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Jim Kelly for those at home.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But thanks for playing. And then before we kind of sign off here in a minute or two, is if we want to put a message on the heart of every listener, because it's going to go out in December, so before New Year's, what's kind of what would that message be? A message of, I think, encouragement, right? What would be something we might want to say for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a theme of this podcast, and that is you are valuable. You're a miracle. No matter what people have told you, the world has told you, or circumstances has told you, you're valuable. You're a miracle. And listen, if you're depressed or you're hurting right now, you haven't even met all the people you're going to love yet. You don't even know what goodness is up around the corner. Firstly, if you have margin this year, your time or money, then give. You cannot outgive God. And you being a cheerful giver, like the joy. I have joy from things happening in my life, but nothing compares to the joy that I feel when I help people. And I teach people to serve in their sweet spot. A lot of times we have people that are just, they'll serve in an area and it's not something that lights them up, and they'll end up quitting. And once you find your sweet spot, finding what sets your soul on fire, and serving in that lane, in that vein, you won't ever quit. And I just tell you, serving and blessing others is the biggest. Like it's the best. And I'm going to shamelessly plug one more time, but in February I'm hosting a retreat, a very, very tiny retreat for givers, leaders, creators, moms, dads. I mean, really just the whole gamut. I've got young to old coming, single, married, widows, and it's very, very intimate. I'm talking 15 to 30 people. And I'm teaching. I brought in another gentleman that I need to have him on your podcast or recommend. His name's Jeremy Newsome. And he has built incredible wealth, written books from nothing. And he talks about the soul of money. And he is phenomenal. And he's an advisor to billionaires. And so you can't even buy his time. So he's coming to teach. I have a girlfriend who's an international musician who's going to do a private concert on the beach by candlelight. My marriage coaches are coming to teach. So even if you're not in a relationship, but you just want your relationships to be better overall, they can teach you something. And so it's at Amelia Island. Third weekend in February. And then that Saturday night, we're having a gala and a ball, all to benefit mental health resources. And so the space is very, very limited. And I would love if one of your guests says, you know what, I need something for me. I need to refill the tank. I need to be inspired. I need to get plugged in. I need community. This just might be for them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I actually had a couple people in mind. So offline, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And just kind of as we recap here, for those that are financially able, financially fluent, right? There are so many ways that we can help out just financially, because we don't want to discount that. Like, that's a big deal, right? So if you got it,
Huge.
yeah. And if you want to be good stewards and do it in a tax efficient way, there's ways to do it that way as well. But certainly want to inspire those that have the time to do that. And then before we close out here, for those that want to learn more about you, I know you've mentioned a couple things, but let's kind of put a bow on it. what would be the best website or YouTube channel, whatever it might be, just to kind of learn more about you and what you're doing out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the greatest two places to start is the movement's website, which is the letter I, the letter M, changingthenarrative.org. I'm changingthenarrative.org. And then my website is rachelbaribeau.com. So all the information on me, on videos, on the movement, on all of the things are there. I'm on all socials. I love getting messages from people. For a while there, Ray, I had an autoresponder, I had a mini chat autoresponder, and I had a friend tell me, this doesn't feel like you. And I
Mm.
recently just took it off. I don't like when I think I'm talking to somebody and I'm either talking to a bot, or somebody's assistant. And so, yeah, I love getting emails, messages from people, any of the socials, rachelbaribeau.com or imchangingthenarrative.org.
Okay, that's awesome. And for those that have just regular old questions about anything financial planning related or even mental health related, send us an email at info@scwealthpartners.com, www.southeastwealthpartners.com. This is Ray signing off. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for listening to the Financially Fluent podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
This communication is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult with a qualified tax professional, accountant, or legal advisor regarding your specific situation before making any financial decisions. Investment advisory services are provided only in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Ray's opinions are not based on the specific financial situation of any investor, so they may be unsuitable for some investors. The information on Financially Fluent does not constitute a solicitation of the sale or purchase of securities. You should consult a professional advisor before executing a security trade or taking any other action based on information contained in this program. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member, FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned and/or other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.